From Fear to Flow, The Psychology of Horror Game Design이라는 주제로 패트릭 로즈 컨설팅의 패트릭 로즈 프로덕트 스트래티지 컨설턴트님께서 강연 준비해 주셨는데요. 멀리서 와주신 만큼 여러분 더 큰 박수와 호응으로 맞이해 주시면 대단히 감사하겠습니다.
안녕하세요, 여러분. 저는 파트릭 로제입니다. 저는 조금 한국말 할 수 있어요. 하지만 너무 어려워요. So allow me to switch to English today. I am talking about video games today. Who likes video games? 비디오 게임 좋아해요? 좋아요. 호러 게임 좋아해요? 네, 좋아요. 알겠습니다. Let's start. I'm Partric Rose. I'm coming all the way from Germany. I spent a lot of time in Korea, in Seoul specifically. I have many friends here. I really enjoyed over here. It's a beautiful country, and I'm so happy to be here today. I am a global consultant. I have clients around the planet, around the globe. Indie studios, AAA studios, all type of games I'm working on, and I help them with product strategy, game design, and market analysis. Here's a few projects I've been working on, so allow me to give you that little piece of introduction. I worked on titles like Dark Souls and Elden Ring, and also some horror games like Little Nightmares or the Dark Pictures Anthology. Some of these games you might have played before. And I'm working with a lot of partners around the world. I'm sorry, there seems to be a little bit of issues with the graphics, but this is not the important part yet, so no worries. Today, we're going to talk about horror games. Why do we play horror games? In order to answer that question, we have to ask another question first. Why do we play games at all? What in our mind makes us play games? Have you ever wondered yourselves, why do you sit in front of a screen, push buttons, something is happening and you are happy? Isn't that weird? As a former games researcher, together with my international team, we have been asking this question. And we have been finding some solutions in psychology, some answers in psychology, which I want to talk about now. This is the answer. A, R, and C. What does that even mean? It's an easier way to remember the complicated words that are coming up now. That is autonomy. Autonomy means all of us want to make our own significant decisions. We want to be agent of our own life. If we can't make our own decisions, we will be unhappy and depressed. So a game that offers us making cool decisions, like walking into that direction and then something cool is happening, that's interesting for us. A game that allows us to make dialogue decisions, like, do I befriend this person or do I befriend the other person, for example? Or even more significant decisions in games. That is interesting for us. That is a big motivational driver for us in games. Relatedness is the next factor. Relatedness is a little bit of a funny word in English. It basically means being social, socializing. We want to take care of other people. And that is so strong in Korean culture, actually. You know it. You have to have 눈치. 눈치 없으면 안 돼요. 안 좋아. So, socializing is such an important concept for human motivation. If there's another person with you in the room, you will act differently to when there is no other person in the room. That works in games too. Multiplayer games, of course. So big in Korea. Koreans love multiplayer online games, RPGs or shooter games, for example. But also story and narrative in a game. That is also really important, and that is also the relatedness factor. So now we have two big motivators of why we play games, and there's another one, and that is competence. The competence factor in intrinsic motivation means that we always want to improve, we want to learn, we want to become better at things. If we feel like this game is too easy or this game is too difficult, it's not fun for us. We need to feel competent in order to be engaged with anything, in real life as well. When you go to school and the materials are too difficult, or the teachings are too easy, you're easily getting bored or overwhelmed. And it's the same in games. So basically what we are doing in games is we are just reproducing the motivational factors from real life. This is called the self-determination theory. By Ryan and Deci, this theory exists since the 70s already. We know quite a lot about this. There are so many experiments about it. And this is why you are motivated to do things intrinsically, without anyone having to give you money, without anyone having to give you grades. These are the things that keep you going on an everyday basis. And this is also what we sometimes refer to as intrinsic motivation, and this is very small now, I will read it now. People say fun, passion, engagement, flow, satisfaction, immersion. All these words are actually just these three motivational factors. You don't have passion in your life anymore? Focus on these three factors. You will be more passionate again. Your players don't play your game. You don't have a lot of retention or user engagement. Focus on these three factors. Design your game around these three factors. You will be more successful. Autonomy, relatedness, and competence. I have created this Venn diagram for you because no presentation is complete without a Venn diagram. And also, I want to show off that you can mix these three factors very well. And if you find the synergies with these three factors, how do you do that? You have the competence factor. Let's say we have a shooter game. In the shooter game, you have to learn how to use the gun, how to shoot other players maybe, or your enemies in the game, the aliens or whatever that is. And then we mix it with relatedness. So suddenly we make it a multiplayer shooting game and it's more fun. Then we mix it with autonomy, important decision making. So meaning out of a sudden you have different pieces of equipment, different character classes, for example. You have to make important decisions. The game becomes more fun and more engaging. And this is how you can design a whole game around this theory. So the thing is, I'm teaching this kind of theory to game designers all around the globe for over 10 years now. And then a couple of years ago, maybe like 7 years ago, I was holding this session. I was giving this session in front of students in a small town in the north of Finland. Kajaani was that city's name. And in Kajaani, they said like, Partric, that's awesome stuff. That helps us a lot to design better games. But there was one brave student, and she asked me a question that I couldn't answer on the spot. She asked me in front of everyone, but Partric, that sounds good, but that still doesn't explain why some people enjoy horror games. I thought like, that's kind of true, because horror games play with fear. And when we are feeling fear, we want to run away. Usually motivation works the different way. We are drawn to things. We are drawn to games. We want to go to what we want. Motivation doesn't usually make us run away. It just pulls us somewhere. But horror games, at first glance, they make us run away. That is counterintuitive. So in the years after that, I was researching that a little bit, diving deeper into psychology to understand, why do horror games work then? What makes this genre so special? Oh, sorry, that just one more thing I want to add here. Forgot about that one. In the center of all this, by the way, when you mix all these three factors, you have the huge user engagement. Keep that in mind if you want to design powerful, engaging games. Mix these three factors together. So, now to the question, why do we play horror games? I needed to dig deeper. And for this, physiological, this is the Maslow pyramid. Have you ever heard about the Maslow pyramid of human needs? Anyone has heard of it? The Maslow pyramid? Yes, some people? Yeah? Perfect. Nice. This is a well-known model as well. It's good that you know it already, then you don't need the graphic. The chart says, on the bottom, we have the physiological needs. That is food, that is sleep, these kind of things. If we are really, really hungry, if we need food, we will not think about gaming. We will not think about fun or anything. We want to sleep first. We want to eat first. The next step is safety. Safety is here. So now our belly is filled, we had good sleep, but now there's a tiger with us in the room. When there's a tiger with us in the room, we want to get away from the tiger. We want to go to safety. We are being pulled towards safety. Makes sense, right? And then above that, we have the love and belonging. We have esteem above it. There's a laser pointer here. Ah, yeah. Well, small one. We have esteem above it. And then we have the self-actualization. Love, belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. That is basically the self-determination theory. What we talked about before. So Maslow here just took another perspective on the same thing. He found the same thing, basically. But he added these other two layers as well, the physiological and the safety level. So why is it important to look into Maslow's model if it comes to horror games? Well, horror games make us feel unsafe. So what it does, and we can't see that very well here now, but it's a change of state from the self-determination theory part, the top part, down into the safety area. We are thrown into an unsafe area and we feel like we want to escape from that. That's what horror games do. That is still not the answer. Why is that good? Why are horror games now engaging? It's still a weird thing. So let me show you with this one. Okay, now imagine you still have the pyramid here, the Maslow pyramid. And then you have this line here that shows you basically how we are moving through the pyramid when we are playing a horror game. We are moving from kind of okay, we start playing the game, to unsafe, because there are zombies, there are monsters, and so on. Everything that is scary to us. So we feel like, oh, maybe this game is too much for us. Maybe I don't want to play anymore. But then the game allows us to overcome these challenges, and usually, if it's well designed, it puts us into a safe area. The player overcomes the challenges, And overcoming these challenges is actually the part that engages users. That is the part that is fun to us, not the part that is scary. First, we are being shocked and scared, but overcoming that fear, becoming a better person, basically, that is what makes us feel good, because our brain is developing. We become better. Our brain wants to become better. And then what the game does now, as we're in the safe area, well, it throws us back into the unsafety area. And this is necessary to reset the motivation, to keep the game engaging. Because it can't just be scary and then you overcome it and then the game would be over. So it needs to throw us back into an unsafe area. We need to keep leaving our comfort zone, basically. And then it allows us to go back into a safe area. And then back to unsafe, and so on. And that is basically the core of the psychology of horror games. Now we can learn a bunch of things here, because we don't see this only in horror games. As I mentioned in the beginning, games are just copying real-life situations. Games are trying to copy what we often don't have in modern life anymore. Because when we went back, when we go back in human history, when we were still living in caves, for example, and hunting animals, we had a very similar pattern. Every day, on an everyday basis, we needed to feed ourselves. We needed to jump into the danger. We had to step into the risk in order to go hunting, to find food and everything. So that was our everyday life back in the past. Nowadays, we don't have it anymore. We go to the next convenience store and we just buy our food. We don't have it anymore. So what we have created to still stimulate our brain like back in nature is video games. Not only video games, also other games like baseball or soccer, but also video games. And video games are a very accessible way to stimulate our brains just the way our brains are used to back in nature. So, and this is why I believe it's so interesting to research games, because when you research and understand the psychology of games, you understand the psychology of everyday life situations too. So I have a little life lesson for you now here even, which I have learned from horror games. Life's roller coaster is what keeps us fulfilled and motivated. When I say roller coaster, then it's because it looks a bit like a roller coaster, going up and down, up and down. And also in the roller coaster, we have the same effect, basically. It's going to be scary. You go down, you're very scared, and then you made it, and you feel safe again, and that moment feels good, especially. And then it keeps going, until you did it so many times that it's boring already. However, real life works the same. It is important that we are not always on the top of the Maslow pyramid. Now we can see it, by the way. Now it works. Better colors than before. We often think happiness is up here. I tell you what, it's not up there. The whole thing is responsible for happiness. You have to go down here to go back up there, because going back up here is the fun part. This is where our brain is challenged. This is where our brain develops. This is where our brain kicks out dopamine and other neurotransmitters that lead to a happy life. And knowing this, and that is a very serious topic now, but knowing this, I can say the next thing. Depression hates a moving target. When you're down here, you don't feel good. You might be depressed. But when you are up here all the time, you're rich. You have everything you want. And there's no way to improve anymore because you have everything. Nothing to suffer from. Then you're still suffering, most likely, because due to the stagnation your brain experiences, you might get depressed as well. So no, it's not money, it's not only love, it's not only other people around you that make you happy. It's also the challenges of life you have to overcome to be happy. And that is what I have learned from horror games. And knowing this also makes you a better horror game designer. I have brought a few game examples for you because that was very theoretical. Now I want to come up with some examples, but it is helpful if you have played these games, and if not, you can maybe look these up later on if you're really interested in horror game design. One of them is Biohazard. It's known as Resident Evil in the West, but over here I think it's called Biohazard. Anyone has played Biohazard? It's a Japanese game, mostly about zombies, sometimes also some other monsters. Biohazard features safe rooms. So you have to walk through all the corridors and dark houses and buildings with a lot of zombies, and it's all the time very scary, very dangerous setting. And then you finally arrive a room which is a safe room, and you know that there's no zombies coming in. It's always safe. And there's also something to save your progress as well. Like usually a typewriter they are using as an item to save your progress. And there's even a soothing music. It makes you feel really, really safe. And then you have to go out there again and face the zombies and the monsters. There is a very well-known thing in the very first Biohazard game from 1996 or 1997. I don't remember the exact year. And that situation was a hallway in a house, in an old house. And you walked through it a couple of times, and there were windows in that hallway. And you felt pretty safe in that hallway because you have to cross that hallway maybe 5 or 10 times before something happens. You think like, oh, this is the hallway where never anything happens. And then suddenly, through the windows, there will be dogs, zombie dogs, of course, monster dogs jumping. And you are in that narrow hallway caught with dogs. So suddenly they throw you from this very safe feeling into the unsafety feeling. Into the unsafe feeling. But if you overcome this very scary situation, you feel so good again. That is also a great example for great horror game design using the exact psychology I just explained before. I will not explain all these examples now, because it's better if you actually played the game and know about these. And since I saw not all of you played it, it's a little bit too much detail here for you. There are some other games I will recommend you though. Silent Hill is doing a great job with fog in the game. Who has played Silent Hill? Silent Hill is a game where you walk through a city and it's very foggy. It's really difficult to see far ahead. And sometimes in the fog there are some monsters waiting for you. You see them slightly, but not completely. You're not even sure if they are monsters or maybe just another human being. And this is how they play with constant unsafety before they give you back a little bit of safety in between sometimes. There's a very cool situation in Silent Hill 3, also a pretty old game by now. In Silent Hill 3, you come to an amusement park area. And in that amusement park area, there's also an amusement park haunted house. Usually haunted houses in amusement parks are scary but safe, because in a real amusement park, well, they should be safe, right? In a horror game, though, you would expect especially the haunted house to be very unsafe. And now they are playing a lot with your psychology there, because you believe it is so unsafe going through that haunted house. But eventually, even though there's a lot of jump scares in that house, there's actually no danger at all. So they are tricking you. You believe it's dangerous, but it's actually not dangerous at all in that game. They're playing with your expectations. You're throwing you into that unsafe area, but actually it is a safe ground. Overall, what Silent Hill does, it plays a lot with uncanniness. You can't clearly make out faces, for example, or intentions of other people you are meeting in the game. Here's some of these examples. The characters you meet, you're always happy to finally, in this foggy town, in this scary town, to meet another person. And you're like, okay, that is safe now. But they are also speaking in kind of weird ways, and you're not sure if you can trust them or not. So they will keep you in that area between safe and unsafe. And they do the same thing with their overall story. The music supports all this, kind of sounds weird and uncanny. And the monster design is the same. The monsters often kind of look like something that could be humans, but they look kind of awkward at the same time and scary. Very uncanny. Then another game, a Western game, a Finnish game this time. Alan Wake, in my opinion, is a real piece of art. It might not be well known over here in Korea, but I really recommend you to have a look at Alan Wake. Especially Alan Wake 2 is such a great game. They have a very interesting mood shift. You come to like an American town where there's a lot of kind of funny but nice people. And then the scene changes quite quickly over to a very scary dark forest, for example. And you have to spend 1 or 2 hours in this very dark and scary forest with monsters and ghosts and so on. But then you will get back to that cozy town with all these nice people, and it feels actually very family-like almost. And this is how they play with the psychology, going up and down, safe, unsafe, safe, unsafe. And as you can see here, I have a whole bunch of more examples for you potentially. I think Bloodborne is also a very interesting one. Bloodborne is a Souls-like game. It has been quite successful in Korea as well. And there is something that's called the Hunter Stream, which is basically the hub area in between the dangerous levels and the very dangerous level designs. And whenever you come back to the Hunter Stream, you will be in a safe area again and feel very good, very nice. But then you have to step out there again into these very dangerous and risky levels. And you always will expand your comfort zone by walking through these levels and gaining more and more area that you haven't known before. And leaving the comfort zone is also something so important for our happiness. Also, again, in real life. I travel a lot, all the time. I'm a little bit of a digital nomad, meaning I live sometimes here, sometimes there. At the moment, I'm living in Korea. And that is a challenge. Every day, I need to leave my comfort zone. If you ever visited another country, you might know how difficult it is to step into a convenience store, for example, and just purchase some water. They might ask you anything in a language you do not understand, and you feel so weird and awkward about it. You are in an unsafe area. But when you manage to purchase your water or whatever you wanted to buy, and step out of the store, you will feel good because you made it. You overcame this challenge. And this is exactly what, in this case, Bloodborne also does. It throws you out there into this uncanny, weird, dangerous world, and you keep expanding your comfort zone and becoming better, and then going back to the hunter stream, which is the safe hub in that game. Enough game examples. I think you get my point here. And it's so nice if you understand this psychology, because now you can apply to all your games. Always keep it in mind. It doesn't only work for horror games, but especially in horror games, it's really powerful. Allow me to say just 2 more things about myself, just in case you need support with things like game design, user retention, or monetization. Or maybe you want to know how to publish your games in the Western markets. Or you need support with your pitch deck, improve it to convince investors or publishers. Contact me. Feel free to connect with me at any time on LinkedIn, Kakao Talk, anything. I also have online courses, not only on game design psychology, but also on business analysis and game success overall. And with that said, I would like to thank you very much so far. And we can answer some questions maybe.
Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. 저희 패트릭님 위에 모시고 여러분들 궁금한 거 있으면은 Q&A로 바로 이어가 보도록 하겠습니다. 혹시 질문 있으시면 플로어에서 손을 들어주시면 저희가 마이크 전달 드리도록 할게요. 질문 있으실까요? 네, 조금 생각할 시간이 필요하신 것 같아서 제가 먼저 그럼 질문을 좀 드려보도록 하겠습니다. 사실 공포 게임이라는 게 팬층이 좀 두터울 수는 있지만 또 많은 분들께는 아직은 또 어색하거나 생소한 장르일 수도 있잖아요. 그렇기 때문에 이 실제 산업 규모라던가 수익성 측면에서 어느 정도의 좀 성장 가능성을 직접 보고 계실지 이 부분에 대해서 한번 여쭤보도록 하겠습니다. So you know how horror games have like passionate fans, but are sometimes viewed as a small and narrow market as well. Do you think there's still strong growth potential for this category in terms of business and audience reach in the future?
Yeah, it is a smaller market in general because a lot of people, as I said in my presentation, think like horror games is not something for them. They want to run away from the scariness, right? But it's also a very engaged audience that likes horror games. So they are willing to pay a high price for a unique and very scary horror game. But the biggest problem actually is making a good horror game. Because there are a lot of indie horror games out there, but they are not very well designed. So you need to understand the psychology first before you start designing your game, and there is a lot of room for success. And one recent example is Silent Hill F, which has released, I think, a month ago. I have played it already. It's a really good game. And Konami has sold several million copies with that. So I believe it's also getting more and more mainstream these days.
네, 시장이 계속해서 커질 수 있다 말씀을 주셨는데 오늘 발표하시면서 좀 여러 개 공포 게임에 대해서 멘션을 주셨잖아요. 저는 사실 다 처음 들어보는 게임이긴 했거든요. 근데 그 중에 좀 하나를 꼽아서 또 새로 진입하는 유저들한테 추천을 해주신다면 어떤 게임이 있을지도 한번 여쭤보도록 하겠습니다. You know, during our presentation today, you know how you mentioned many horror games. Is there any specific one that you want to suggest to us?
They are all great games, but my favorite of these is actually Alan Wake, especially Alan Wake 2, because they make some very, very unique things in that game, which it's just a piece of art, really.
Okay, never heard of it, but I'll try it one day. Thank you so much. 네, 저희 플로어에서 질문 있어서 질문 받아보도록 하겠습니다. 네, 여성분께 마이크 전달드릴게요.
I think there are a lot of people who are interested in playing games, and so maybe they might be a game designer or maybe be a person like you. So what kind of characteristics they have to become that kind of person like you are?
Like me working in the games industry, you mean? And
I mean, as a game designer and then product management, that kind of thing.
Right. Okay. Game designers basically need to be open for everything. Depending on what kind of game you make, you need to learn anything. You want to make a game about space, you need to learn about space science at best. How do spaceships fly and such, for example. So as a game designer, you have to be really, really open to learn anything, and learning never stops. That is also a lot of fun in game design. On the business side, I also do business analysis, and I combine the game design with the business side. Well, you need to be much drier, of course, and you need to understand how to apply the game design in a way that it's also a market success eventually. If you can make that connection, you can be a successful game maker and have a lot of fun in game design as well.
I have last question. You talked about the horror games. Is there any specific horror game that made you stronger after playing it?
Okay. My first horror game I played when I was, I think, 12 years old. I was way too young. And that was Silent Hill 2 at that time, which I really, really loved. But I was also so scared. But it made me a stronger person, because these days I play horror games alone in only like one room, for example, and all alone with my headphones on, and it has to be dark. So I became a very strong person if it comes to playing horror games, I think.
네, 또 저희 플로어에서 추가 질문 있으시면 편하게 손 들어주시면 마이크 전달 드리도록 하겠습니다. 네, 남성분께 마이크 드리겠습니다.
제가 영어 말하기를 못하는데 한글로 해도 될까요?
네, 제가 최선을 다해서 통역을 해보겠습니다.
그 메슬로우 피라미드에서 안전하지 않음을 느끼는 거에서 안전한 5단계로 올라가는 거예요. 그러니까 롤러코스터에서 올라갈 때 재미를 느끼고 내적 동기가 제공이 된다고 이해를 했는데, 그러면은 다시 동기를 받기 위해서는 내려가야 되잖아요. 이 내려가는 과정에서 좀 게임을 하려는 그 동기가 좀 풀어진다거나 좀 기분이 나쁘다거나 이럴 수 있지 않을까요?
So when we feel sense of horror, like for example, when we on a roller coaster, when the roller coaster goes up, we feel the maximum level of horror, and when we go down, and the fear's gone. Then what if in the game, like what if we are on the like downside of the roller coaster? Is there anything that can maintain the sense of fear during the game?
So the thing is, it is important to let people feel all safe again. The fear needs to be gone entirely for a moment. Give them enough room to feel safe, and then they are ready to step out into the unsafetiness again. So when the roller coaster goes down, we often have the phase that for a long time it stays down, nothing bad happens. Maybe you even think that is it's over. But then suddenly it goes up again and down again, and it shocks you again. So this is what we need to achieve in games, and we have to give people a room to breathe and feel safe again in between. That's really important for that design.
네, 또 추가 질문 있으실까요? 없으시면 마지막으로 어쨌든 한국에도 방문을 주셨기 때문에 한국 시장에서 앞으로 기대하시는 점들은 어떤 것들이 있는지도 가볍게 여쭤보도록 하겠습니다. So, as you came to Korea this time, do you expect anything in specific for Korean market in the future?
Oh yeah, there's one thing I want to tell Korean developers over here. Actually, no matter what field in media you're working in, video games or any kind of other media, Koreans are really, really humble. But Koreans are really, really talented, extremely well educated, and you're really powerful if it comes to product and game design or any kind of design. You need to find ways to take it out there in the West. You will be successful. It's not easy to overcome the cultural barriers, but you are really, really good at what you're doing. And sometimes I feel you need someone to tell you that, because you're too humble otherwise. Go out there, spread your designs to the world.
Thank you so much for your kind words. 네, 저희 패트릭 대표님은 여기까지 모시고 말씀 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 다시 한번 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. Thank you so much.
감사합니다.
네.